Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Copilot Compass, where each week we take a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot. As always, I have the pleasure of being joined by my esteemed colleague, fellow Copilot enthusiast, and our resident smart guy, Logan.
Thanks, Brett. Happy to be here.
Logan, why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit more about what they can expect in this week's episode?
Yeah, so as always, we'll get started with our question of the week, and then we're gonna get into our topic, which is co-sell enablement with your partner and resellers. So it should be interesting. I'm excited to get into it. Make sure you stay tuned to the end for a sneak preview of what we have coming out next, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Awesome. Let's jump right into it.
Let's do it. So let's get into our question of the week. And remember, you can submit your own question either by leaving a comment on this video or by emailing the email address in the description. So this week, our question is, what role can Copilot play in automating tasks across departments like HR, finance, or sales?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think if you would have said M365 Copilot, I would have said, well, it doesn't really automate much. I mean, I think this kind of depends on the way you use the word automate, like Microsoft 365 Copilot and, tools like Copilot Chat, like the user interfaces, which is what we usually talk about in these episodes. They don't really automate things in the traditional sense. I mean, it takes meeting notes, it can summarize things for you, but to me, when I think autonomous actions, I'm thinking like business processes that are done independently, and especially, you mentioned like sales and a few other things in there. So when you're talking autonomous, you're talking about Copilot Studio or even further than that to Power Platform. So yeah, I guess I would kind of summarize all this by saying, well, M365 Copilot doesn't really automate things. It really comes down to the agents and stuff that you build in Studio. But I don't know, Logan, you're more of an expert in Studio and agent building and stuff like that. So what's your input on this one?
Yeah, no, I think you covered most of it. Yeah, all the automation that you're going to be doing in Copilot, I guess, outside of like meeting notes, is going to be in Studio.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of really cool things you can do, and as we've shown you in some previous episodes, it's not that hard. You don't need to have that technical of a mindset uh, to like really get some cool automated processes going. So stuff like automatically applying to emails, automatically updating spreadsheets, stuff
Mhm.
like that. Anybody can really set up in Studio, which is super cool. So yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think, like a year ago when would hear things like people asking about like business cases that are like autonomous, I was thinking, okay, that's not really something I need to pay that close of attention to because the knowledge gap is just too big for me there, not coming from a technical background. But Studio does make it like super easy to just use natural language and build even some simple agents that do take autonomous action. So yeah, I feel like we kind of skirted the question a little bit, but yeah, I think it's an exciting topic this week. Let's jump into our topic of the week.
Let's do it.
All right, today's topic is one I've been really looking forward to this one because it bridges, two of my passions, which is partner programs and co-sell enablement, and then AI adoption and integration into business processes. So, be a really fun one. We do have two really good demos for you today. So the first one is going to be taking another look at Researcher. So we covered Researcher a couple of weeks back, but we're going to show how you can use Researcher to identify prospective new partners or resellers to target to add to your ecosystem. So we'll show you how, you can prompt Researcher with what you're looking for, the partner, like the profile of these ideal partners, and then have Researcher produce you not only just names of companies, but also people you might want to contact there, some background information, even have it suggest for you like, plays as far as your approach to them, and talking to them about some of your partner offers and partner programs. So that'll be our first demo. The second one we're going to show you is how we can use the chat interface of Microsoft 365 Copilot to help us as we're developing, BOM and collateral for our partner programs. So we'll take, two different files that we're working on. We're going to compare those to make sure it's providing a good, consistent experience for partners. And then we'll also show you how you can use it, one step further to do some localization of that material if you're, especially if you're expanding, beyond just, let's say one single country or one single area. And maybe you're having this program that's offered in, in the continental US and then in LATAM and then in the EU, you want to build material that's specific for each of those geographies. There are a few other really cool ways that we do want to, we're not going to demo today. Just, we don't want to make this episode be 3 hours long, but, a couple of other really good use cases are really around the translation experiences that Copilot can bring to the table. Now, how is this helpful? It really allows your partners to interact with you in the language that's comfortable for them. It's kind of just a small little token to say, let's make you comfortable in this process. So a couple of good ways for that. The first one is, you're getting emails that might come back to you in a different language. You can just translate those and even, write an email and then have Copilot translate that text back into the person's native language. So that's one way. The other thing is in Teams meetings. So Teams does now have the ability to do a voice translation in meetings. And Logan and I have been experimenting around with this, kind of playing around with it. It's pretty cool. Basically, it allows you, like if Logan, let's say, is speaking in Spanish, I'm speaking in English, he can basically hear me presenting in my own voice and style in Spanish. So, even though I'm speaking in English, it's kind of cool. So if you're an M365 Copilot licensed user, I encourage you to try this out. But it does allow you, if you're meeting with a company, let's say you're a US based company, you're meeting with a prospective partner in LATAM, they'll probably provide you with somebody that is an English speaker, but probably not first language. So giving them the ability to say, tell them in advance, hey, feel free to speak in Spanish. It's kind of your native tongue. It allows them to kind of more clearly articulate questions if they're not a strong English speaker or experienced English speaker. So again, now the live translation, one thing we do have to say on that is it does require you to have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So as an example, let's say I am having a meeting with Logan. He's speaking Spanish. I'm speaking English. If I have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, I can turn on that auto translate so I can hear Logan. He speaks in Spanish. I'm hearing it in English. However, for the converse of that to happen, for Logan to have that experience, he's got to have a licensed Copilot license. So this is something that, when I bring this up with customers, it does come up. They'll ask, okay, well, what if, we've got a 10-person meeting and 2 people have the license and the 8 others don't? Well, the answer is those 8 other people, unfortunately, just don't get that same translation experience. So, yeah, again, we're not going to demo that today. Did just want to touch on the translation when it comes to communications, either in written communications through Outlook or in, verbal communications in a Teams meeting. But with that, let's dive in and talk about our two demos for today. All right, so our first Crow's Nest demo today is going to be about identifying, potential new partners to contact to get into your partner ecosystem or, enroll in one of your partner programs. So in this case, we're going to try to identify some prospective partners or co-sellers for our new offering. Logan, I'm going to put you on the spot. We need to come up with, um, you know, a company of some kind. Like, what is our company? What is our product? And what type of partners or resellers are we looking to identify? And as you're thinking of that, I'm going to show the folks at home just a quick reminder. Researcher is available for you. I'm just in the web-based version of Microsoft 365 Copilot here. And then under this agents, I see agents that I've built for myself or have been deployed by my organization. And then I see this researcher icon right here. So here's the researcher. As I explained that, hopefully Logan gave you enough time. What's our company here?
Yeah, let's go with like a basketball shoe company. And we're looking for some new resellers. Yeah, to sell our products, maybe on the West Coast.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to start by telling Copilot I need to identify potential resellers for our basketball shoe company. We want to identify, let's say they're mid-size. Let's say potential resellers that have at least one, but no more than, let's say, 40 storefronts. We want to focus on family-owned businesses. Uh, do we want to, let's say where they specialize in sports specific.
Mm.
Specialize in sport specific shoes and clothing. Um, they should be on the West Coast. Okay. Anything else we want to think of that we want to be? I mean, again, with any prompt, the more specific, the better the results. So we're saying a basketball shoe company, looking at 1 to 40 storefronts, kind of that small to mid-sized, and we're looking at family oriented or family owned businesses rather. Anything else we want to say here about these resellers?
Nothing I can think of right now.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and start with this. With researcher, it's almost always gonna ask you a follow-up question unless you give it like a crystal clear, concrete prompt. So it's gonna probably ask us some follow-up questions to kind of reframe its thinking before it actually starts to build the report. All right, so we want to make sure, are there any specific states on the West Coast you want to prioritize? Let's say, and this is the way I usually do it. I don't know if this is good or not. I just started doing it this way, but like it typically has a couple of questions there. So I'm actually just going to put a number next to it and answer them one by one. So are there any specific states on the West Coast? Let's say Washington, Oregon, California. Maybe start there. Do you have any particular criteria for the type of sport specific and clothing they should specialize in? Um, yes, basketball. We'll say our shoe company makes basketball shoes. Okay. And then the third one, is there a preferred method for how you want this information presented? Let's say a detailed report. And then actually, it's something we probably should include in the prompt. Let's say that we want to also include potential contact information or people we should contact. Let's also include some background on each store you identify as a potential, can't type today, potential reseller, and include names of people at each company that might be best for us to reach out to. All right. Anything else we can think of here?
I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Now let's see. Sometimes it might have some other follow-up questions. It may start doing its thing. So let's kind of take a look here, give it a second and see what it wants to do with the new context that provided. Okay, so we can see it's actually starting to do the report now. So it's gotten what it's needed. It's beginning the search. When researchers working, and again, we just did a deep dive into this a couple weeks back, but quick refresher, or maybe those of you that might have missed that episode, it kind of puts together this little box for you here that explains what it's doing. You can also do this show more. And right now it's at the beginning stages. It's kind of structuring its process here and trying to figure out what the relevant sources might be. But as it starts to work, it's going to start to pull in like kind of a step-by-step guiding you through what it's doing so far. It'll do, kind of research first and then try to, I guess, get a little bit more specific and targeted with the research. And then it will show you how it's building out the report. Now, this will take time. As with any AI prompt, the length of time depends on the amount of information it's going to need to provide you with this report and how detailed the report's going to be. So this can take anywhere, from a few minutes up to like a half hour. What I typically do when I'm running these types of reports is I'm actually going to just step away from this process for a moment. Maybe I'm going to go work on some other things or other tasks that I have. Or maybe, this might be a good time for me. I step out to get lunch or go for a short walk. Now, before we take a short break, I'm going to show you here. You can see it's starting to put together the stuff it's considering potential options, refining potential family-owned stores, clarifying target stores. So it's working through its process. Now, we'll take a short break. We'll come back to you guys once this has wrapped up its report for us.
So it's been about 15 minutes and we have our results in researcher here. So as you can see, it's given us quite a bit. It kind of starts off with just kind of an overview of a few of the different retailers that it found for us. Um, and then yeah, here we go into our chart. So we have looks like 4 different retailers that found for us that met all of our criteria. We could see Sports Basement with 13 stores in California, Roadrunner Sports in San Diego, Mickey Sports in LA, and Jeff Sporting Goods in San Gabriel. And you could see we asked for the contact information and it followed up on that. Gives us a little breakdown of kind of what they focus on, and then their locations. So this is a great place to start. Um, and yeah, let's see what else they got here for us. We have trends among independent family-owned sports retailers. So I guess it's giving us a little bit more of a background on, kind of the history of family-owned sports retailers on the West Coast, which could definitely be helpful, as we're reaching out to these different companies. Um,
I definitely see that being helpful too, like if you're getting into a new market and kind of helping you understand the industry, in the area. One other thing too, Logan, like, it's showing us here at the top of the screen, we're seeing like kind of a summary of what it was using and what it was focusing on to do the search. Could you maybe show the folks at home how they can see like the actual code that was used?
yeah, yeah, good call. So yeah, here we have display options, and we can go here and select code. And here we can see the actual code that was used, which is pretty cool. I don't know HTML, but if you do, this could definitely be helpful. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can do that for any of these like kind of little boxes that pop up. You can go in here and take a look at the code, which is pretty cool. There's probably a couple more on this document. But yeah, so here we have, yes, some more information, characteristics of successfully family-owned sports resellers. Yep. Marketing strategies and customer engagement. So some different marketing strategies we could possibly use, that are kind of in line with these types of businesses. Um, some called common challenges faced by family-owned sports retailers that could definitely be, helpful when we're trying to build a relationship. What else do we have? Yeah, and you can see we have another one of these cards here where I could take a look at the code. Um, Opportunities and growth avenues for family-owned resellers. So it seems like it took up quite a bit of focus on, you know, uh, giving us more information about these types of family-owned resellers and kind of their struggles and stuff, which could definitely be helpful when, trying to work on a relationship. Let's see what
Yeah, a
else.
lot of good, like, kind of ecosystem inputs here for sure, but I think,
Yeah,
our goal with this was, "Hey, help us identify some potential resellers for our basketball shoe company." We did get those 5, we even got contact info out of that. So, while this might seem a little bit of overkill, it did still at least achieve the goal that we'd set out for.
absolutely. And yeah, we finish up with the conclusion. And also you can see here it links all the different sources used. So I assume a lot of these are, either articles about the businesses or like the businesses websites themselves. So definitely helpful to come in here in the sources and take a look at what Copilot is drawing from.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
circling this back to recruiting of partners too, like what we would do as a next step is we'd probably take a look at the resellers that it gave us an option or the storefronts that it gave us options for, do a little bit of research based on this report. And then, of course, we can take it another step further by asking Copilot chat or even continuing on to this conversation with the researcher to do a little bit more investigation into those specific, prospective customer co-sellers of ours. And then, sort of just take it from there. All right, so now we're going to show you how you can use, again, we're going to use the Copilot chat interface here, the web-based interface. And we're going to do some work on some materials, like some partner-facing materials that we have on this co-sell offer. So I'm going to give you a quick background just for contextual understanding of the files that we're working on here. So what we did is we've got a theoretical company called Ships Ahoy. We build like the fabric for sales on replica pirate ships. So we kind of have a weird specialty niche here. We build the material like we build the fabric for it. We also do some work where we actually install this material on replica pirate ships. And we're primarily working with, like, I don't know if you call it like a general contractor or whatever, but like shipbuilders, like people that are building these replica ships. So we're doing a component of that, almost like a subcontractor type of relationship. And we have this new incentive model that we're working with. And really, I'm calling this partner enablement. We built this material using Copilot just to build you some demo stuff. And it's really, when I read through it, it's more field enablement, like our own field team. But, tomato, tomato here. For the sake of the demo, this will work for us. Now, common practice here, we started out with focusing on one particular piece of material. In this case, it was a PowerPoint deck, like a sales enablement deck. Now, we wanted to include some other material, like we've also got this one-page flyer that we're working on, and we have an outline for the flyer where we're going to give it over to our marketing team here, like kind of the criteria that we have, so have them start producing it. But we want to make sure that the content is consistent. And this happens all the time in new partner programs or new co-sell offers in particular, where you start in on this one base piece of material, and then as you iterate on things, things change. Maybe the incentive model changes, or the payout structure changes, or legal advises you that you have to make some kind of revision. And so, maybe you're working on multiple pieces of material simultaneously while the change is happening. It's hard to make sure that the changes have been, articulated across the entirety of the material that you're working on. And there is nothing more frustrating for partners than they get material, they look at it, and two pieces of material on the same topic directly conflict with one another. Floods your service team or your partner enablement teams with questions, and it just creates, even if it's an easy response or easy answer, it just creates confusion. And honestly, it like puts a little bit of a lack of trust in that partner's mind. Maybe it's a small little bit, but still. So in this case, what we want to do is we got these materials. We want to make sure they're consistent. So for the sake of simplicity, I've already referenced the two files here. There's the PowerPoint deck and there's the flyer outline. So I'm going to ask Copilot to compare. We'll keep it, actually, we'll do a simple prompt here. Are there any discrepancies between these two partner co-sell enablement materials? So simple question, quick prompt, but it should be good enough for us to get a comparison here. So um, here comes Copilot's response. It says, thank you for sharing the material. It's going to give us some areas of alignment. That's good. I'm hoping for a lot of check marks here. But really what we're focused on here is just making sure that the two don't conflict with one another. All right, so it has flagged some notable differences here. So the topic, depth of content. So concise, high-level summary in the flyer, presentation in depth. That's good. We know that's kind of what we're shooting for here. Flyer, we want to increase kind of grab the interest, and then the presentation is really that deeper dive. Onboarding and training for partners, not even mentioned in the flyer, detailed. Okay, so maybe that's something we want to take back. Hey, we want to provide a good onboarding experience for partners. We want to make that clear from this flyer that maybe we're going to have posted somewhere. So something for us to take a look at. Sales support also not mentioned here. This includes some sales training and marketing material. Success stories not mentioned. Mentions that there's, this is only text only in the flyer material. So be it. It's just a guideline we're giving to our marketing team, but more visuals here. So um, this all looks pretty good. It's got some recommendations for me here that you can see. So it's not only pointed out, hey, here's what's different, but it's also pointing out, here's some recommendations on how you solve it. Now, this is just a demo only. So it's, these weren't like actual pieces of real material that we're working with, for our co-sell programs. But if you did have like specific metrics on, incentive structures, funding programs and models, we could get more concrete details where it's going to say, hey, this is 0.25% different in this file. So pretty cool. Good starting place. Now let's take it one step further. So maybe this material was written for our US based resellers, and maybe we want to see what this we also want to produce this for our Japanese resellers. So I'm going to ask Copilot, can you provide recommendations and considerations for localizing this material for Japanese partners? Okay, now we'll see what it comes back with. All right, so it's telling us language and translation, native level Japanese translation, localize the terminology, cultural adaptation. So it's telling us Japanese business culture, values, trust, and enduring partnerships. So maybe we want to focus a little more on history and mutual growth, reliability, and shared success. We want to de-emphasize some of the sales language. So it's given us, some ideas for us to consider, including onboarding timelines. They often want a detailed planning. Okay, this is a good consideration. Maybe for the Japanese version, we want to add a slide in here that shows like the timeline and the steps for onboarding. But yeah, this is just a good checklist for us as we start to work on localizing the material. Now, there's other things you can do here from a localization perspective as well. You could pull up one of these pieces of material like the flyer or the PowerPoint deck in, let's say in PowerPoint deck's case, in PowerPoint, and just ask it to translate the material for you. Now, you're gonna probably at least want somebody that speaks Japanese, like a native Japanese speaker, to at least look through it, but it can do most of the legwork for you. But again, good checklist for us, good considerations as we look to localize this material for other geos. In today's journey of the Copilot Compass, we talked to you about applying AI with Copilot in your partner enablement and co-sell programs. We had two good demos for you today. First, we showed you how you can use Researcher in your recruiting and identification of prospective partners and resellers. And then secondly, we showed you a few different applications using the web-based, version of Copilot, like that chat experience where we took a couple of pieces of, enablement material. In this case, it was a PowerPoint deck and a flyer. We compared the two to make sure that there was no discrepancies to cause confusion with our partners. And then we also built an easy kind of guide and checklist for us on localizing that material. So hopefully you found some of this valuable.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when we kind of dive into a really specific niche use of Copilot. I feel like we can find some like really interesting use cases. So yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And remember that we have Q&A sessions every episode, so make sure to submit your questions. New episodes come out weekly on Tuesday, and stay tuned to get a sneak preview of what we have coming out next.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.